This podcast was recorded on traditional Denizal land. Ooh, here it is. The second part of my episode with Gary Oker, councillor with Doig River First Nation. Hey, it's Trey Lopushinsky, host of Before the Peace. And yes, this is part 2. Part 1 was released last month. We made an error with labeling and advertising the last episode. The guy behind the scenes, Greg, I guess he's like my co-producer, helper. I don't know. He posts up the episodes. He puts up the descriptions and everything like that so that it goes out to all the podcast platforms, as well as he does the promos for all of Before the Peace. So anything you see on social media, that's all Greg. I'm blaming him for labeling the episode weird because it was the second time we talked to Gary. So it was a little bit confusing because it was like Gary 2, but part 1 of Gary 2. And it just seemed like a lot of people were confused. But if you click on the episodes, don't worry. We looked to fix that all up, but it doesn't matter. The content's still the same. Last month was part 1. Part 2 is taking place right now. Last episode, we mainly delved into Gary's past. This episode is more about what he and Doig River currently have going on with projects, initiatives such as the Kema Experience, the urban reserve being set up in Fort St. John. We chatted a little bit about TSe K WA and so much more. So make sure you listen to this podcast. But if you haven't listened to the last one, I think you'll be okay. I think you'll be okay to listen to this one, and then you can listen to the other one afterwards if you want. Whatever you want. The world is your oyster. I did do a big background about Gary last month in the last episode. So if you want that from me, you're going to have to go to the last episode. Other than that, I think you should be good to listen to this interview today because I don't want to take up too much of your time. I want to get right into it with the rest of my conversation with Gary Oker. But before I get into that, I want to say, I'm always looking for podcast ideas, guest ideas. Hey, I do pretty good on my own. Most of the guests we've had have been booked by myself or Jenna in the past. But I want to know what the listeners want to hear, who they want us to talk to. So if you have any ideas, make sure you email me at beforethepeace@energeticcity.ca. You can also reach out to us at beforethepeace on Instagram and beforethepeace_ on Twitter. Now, as per usual, it's time to get paid. This podcast wouldn't be possible without the help of Troyer Ventures. Troyer has been serving our community and the energy industry with tank and vac trucks since 2000. They are built on the principles of hard work, service, and community, and they are proud to offer the financial support to make this program possible. Thank you, Troyer. Thank you, Gary. Here is Gary Oker 2, Part 2. So right now, you're at a point where there's several different departments within Doig. It's very self-sustaining. You got, how we say it wrong, but Ujo Development. You guys got your own company. You have all these partnerships going on. You have the hub that's going into Fort St. John. Compared to where we are now, to when Davis approached you, had that progression started, or was that around the time where it had started?
I think at that time, after say 20-some years of legal litigation, we were dealing with the
Montney
claim,
Yeah, okay.
and we got a settlement at that time for that, and that was the starting point, really, to reclaim our resources. Because before that, the band was really poor. We barely made, enough to operate. So. But at that time, it just gave us the boost we needed.
Kicking off point for you guys.
Yeah, it was okay. Now it's time to, bring back people and let's rebuild our cultural history the way we want to see that vision, based on our ancestors' vision that they want us to be better than them. So I've always believed it, and even the late Chief Calvin Davis, he always believed that, our ancestors, we have to honor them and make sure that we do the right things to honor them, right? And we just build upon that. And we had a clear vision to build our community to what it is now, and we certainly started it back then.
So when you got elected chief, essentially, how do you think that went, and what were your goals? Was it essentially just taking the torch from Chief Davis and then just carrying it along until the next chief came, and obviously making progression and continuing what had been started? But really, how did that work for you, and what were some high points for you during those 2 terms?
I think those it was certainly a vision to rebuild our community, and my role, I would say, my biggest role was to really establish a foundation. We helped develop a permanent trust, which the majority of the money was put into a trust, and that became invest that in the money markets, and to make sure that trust continues for future generation. That was our point. That was the big thing that I think that my role as chief at that time, to establish that. And then today, it really helped us move forward in making sure that there's monies there for language and elders' pension. One of the things that we still have going on today is to make sure that the elders have some income coming in. So we call it elders' pension, and through the interest, the monies that we raise, parts of it goes to the elders.
And then there's opportunities there for youth as well, right? I know I forgot what Shona and I exactly what she told me about it, but I know there's opportunities for kids, different opportunities if they're seeking education elsewhere with the hopes of coming back to the First Nation. There's opportunities there as well, right? So it's kind of setting it up where you're taking care of the elders, you're helping give youth a platform to do what they want to do in this life, but also bring it back to the First Nation and contribute in that way, as well as just kind of maintain and sustain life and continue growing for all members across. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's always been the vision, and to this day, we continue that vision. All the youth who should have the opportunity to get the best education possible, and that the trust that we establish is to help with that. And then, of course, other programming like funeral costs. As you know, today, their funeral, the cost of it is very expensive to bury somebody. So we got to have some funds there for that too. And in other programs, social programming, if people want to go do some healing work, that's available for them. So essentially, that money will be there for continuous of development.
Yeah, and like you said, for future generations. So after you finish your 2 terms with chief, from then till now, which I know is still a long time, it's about a decade, but what was your journey there? Like, you have a long resume, Gary. You've done a lot of things. You have a lot of interests, but also those translate into events and programs that you've done for the First Nation. So coming out of being chief, did you when were you a councillor again? Sorry, because I know you're a councillor now. When were you elected?
6 years ago.
6 years ago.
2017.
2017. Okay. So between that
17,
time,
18,
sorry.
19, 20, 21, 22. Or is it 18? 2017, 18? Yeah, something like that.
I'm pretty sure it's
This is the third
2017. Yeah, but so coming from chief to the point where you were elected as councillor, what were you doing then? You're still working with Doig and helping with the growth. What were your goals during that time? What were you doing?
I started a consultant company. So I was doing a lot of consultant work and doing projects for tribal council, to Doig, and companies, working with companies to do different cross-cultural stuff. So I was basically running my own company for about 10 years after that.
And then once you became councillor, was that something that kind of you put to the side and just kind of went fully in with being a councillor and continuing to work with Doig? Because during your consultation time, you were obviously still doing things with Doig as well, right?
Yeah.
You were helping them out as well. Did that kind of amp up once you became councillor?
Yeah, I mean, one of the policies we have in Doig now is that if you get elected, it's a full-time job.
Yeah. Okay.
And you can't run a company. So because that just becomes conflicted. So if you're a councillor, you're a councillor. You're elected position, and you do the job for the people.
Now looking back at your whole journey and how it aligns with Joseph Campbell, and if you can sit here and have a conversation with your mom and your dad, what do you think that conversation would be like? Like how you started growing up and what they had taught you, and kind of how it kick-started you in your journey. What would that conversation be like? What would you say to them?
I listened. I could say I listened to some of the wise things that they've told me. That always to be kind to people, lend a helping hand, be useful. One of the great things that I think that in my mind, it means if you want something in life, make it. You got your hands, create something. And I think with that mindset about creating things, visioning, if you want something in life, what do you need? To get in touch with that, to find out really what it is that you want to accomplish in your life or what you need. And with that, you can create it and be useful for community. And I think those are the things that I would say is a reflective of my life, that if we can harness that, and I was lucky enough to do that in my life. I mean, there's people that struggle with trying to find their vision and trying to find their goals and what am I supposed to do and how is that. That's a complicated thing, and that's when Joseph Campbell talked about that. It's the separation from family and the separation from community. You're kind of something that kind of holds you together. It's very trying, traumatic experience just to do that separation. And then the initiation. That initiation is really about, okay, what are we going to do? The commitment of that. Once you receive your power or your goal or your opportunity, what are you going to do with that? So if your life all of a sudden shows up in front of you, what are you going to do about it? Right? How are you going to address it? Are you going to run away from it, or are you going to go into it? And I think that's what I learned from my life. That, things come and go. People come and go. And what is the learning piece of that moment when that happens? And then what are we going to do about what we know? And I guess that's raising our consciousness at a higher level to say, okay, I learned this here. This fits with what I want to do in my life. This is the things that I could pull together. And here's the opportunity. So are we going to take it, or are we going to just wait around for, maybe tomorrow? Well, tomorrow that opportunity is going to be gone. So I think that is the key to any young person listening to this.
What does a week look like for Gary Oker? You're just so busy all the time. You have so much going on.
Well, there's a lot of different projects on the go all the time. Every week is a little slightly different. Right now, every Monday is basically council meetings that I have to attend to, and that's when I work with the chief and council and administration to work on some of the planned projects that we're running, and then it changes from there.
So do you schedule everything? Do you have a calendar, or is it just kind of a remembering, or in the morning you're like, okay, what am I doing today? And this is what I'm going to accomplish. The reason why I'm asking for those that might be interested is just because you've accomplished so much and you've done so much. And sometimes people don't look at the work that goes into it, the day to day, the week to week. And now you're at a point where you've been doing it so long, I'm sure it's natural to you, but kind of how does that look? Do you schedule your days, or like you said, it could change every day? Are you waking up in the morning? How does that work for you?
Every morning, wake up with some blessings, like you gotta have a gratefulness that, we're here in life, and that all the things that we set our minds to has to be in right format. So in Beaver, we would say, your mind has to be set in a good way. You always got to kind of be careful or be aware about that, because you got to get it in the right spot in order to ensure that the things that are coming down that you plan for, or you wish for to come into your life, has to match your mindset. So that's a critical piece. Waking up in the morning, and of course having a good cup of coffee always helps out, right? And then just set up. So most of my life is pretty planned because of the working at the council level. We have a lot of schedules, meetings, the official band business that I always is a priority in my life now, and those are scheduled, planned out, and we're pretty booked.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, especially right now with so much going on, and we'll delve into some projects that Doig is, in the midst of right now. But just going back to kind of your week to week. So as far as your painting and your music, is that something you kind of just do when the feeling is right, or do you set aside a section of the day or the weekend for you to work on that?
I think it's important for any creative person to set some time to do certain things. You got to do it, or else you can just go anywhere and everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So you got to have a plan of action to execute certain things, and to make sure that you have the right people as your part of your planning, and all that's got to be set up, or else it's not going to happen. I always want to make the time, and I always do, 7 days a week, and make a time to work on my music, or make a plan that I will bring in professional people, like the project that we're working on now on the soundscapes for the exhibits for the cultural center. So that's important. So we bring in people to actually help facilitate and record processes such as soundscapes, in order to use that for exhibits, cultural app, all the big projects that we're working on, and we're constantly moving towards that. Painting, I try to make time once a week at least to paint, do something. I always got my paintings all around me, and I got, as you can see, my studio is getting more organized.
Yeah, it definitely is since last time. But the thing that I like is every time I come into your studio, there's something new. So more specifically with the paintings, right? Like I believe there's definitely a couple here where I came in, I'm like, oh, and I just started staring at it and looking at it. How many paintings do you think you have done?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, because I'm just imagining it's a lot, because I've just seen so many cycle through, and I've only been here, I think it's the third or fourth time, but I just seen so many cycle through, and then sometimes you'll have them on the wall all stacked up, and then I'll go and peruse through them. But yeah, you think it's in the hundreds, thousands?
Well, at least hundreds.
Yeah, because you've been doing it for a long time, right?
I've given out lots and sold lots and stuff like that. So now I'm just reorganizing. Some of these old paintings, I'm actually just framing them. I've done them, years ago, and they're just sitting in my seed can. So now I'm going to take them out and create an exhibit. And that's the plan. So a lot of these you see are going to be part of some kind of show down the road.
Oh, okay. And are you planning on that being like in partnership with not partnership, but is it going to be at TSe K WA, or are you actually thinking of an actual exhibit that would be at a gallery, like the North Peace Gallery? Or
yeah, I'll probably reach out to them and say, hey, I'm ready to do a show. Let's see if we can schedule something. So some kind of interactive art show that can go and allow the public to see, what I've been working on.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, and then looking at the paintings, I know we have had discussions of, it's kind of, you're reflecting on the current state of what's going on. We were looking at a painting literally to my right that has the Northern Lights, and then some fire underneath it, which you were kind of talking about is reflective to the current state right now with all the wildfires this summer, and the beauty of the Northern Lights and kind of the reflection there. For your paintings, do you have it seems like you kind of go all over the place with styles. It's just whatever you're feeling, whatever you like in the moment. Is that correct to say? Is that something that you do?
Yeah, I purposely intentionally do it.
Okay.
Because every painting is got its own thing going on, and
Yeah.
and the idea there is to bring it out as what's happening. So in this case, the one you describe here is really about what's really happening all through the communities. There's lots of beauty, but also there's a lot of destruction going on with the fires, and it's kind of unsettling, like some places that they're losing everything. So
Yeah, it's like contrast to one another of like this one piece. I really like it. And for those of you who haven't seen any of Gary's pieces, make sure you watch out when he does an exhibit one day. And do you have any of your pieces anywhere? Are there a couple on Doig's website? I think underneath your profile there is a couple there too.
yeah, I mean, I think that you'll see a lot of influences of my artworks everywhere. I think one of the places you can go to is the what's the Best Western Hotel.
Oh, okay.
There's one big piece there.
Oh, nice.
Inside. So when you go to the lobby, you go up to the look, you'll see a big 10 by 10 piece there called Inside the Dreams.
That's
Stories
awesome.
within the dreams.
And then as for like, painting isn't something you've ever, like you didn't have any schooling on it or any training, right? This is just something that as a creative you wanted to do to express yourself and what's going on in your head, and that's just kind of something that you just started doing.
Yes, a lot of it's self-learned. I'm still learning. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
every painting, you got to learn a new technique.
Yeah.
Like the book that I got, the art book, there's some masters that done amazing artwork in the past. Pick up an idea or a technique or a stroke or whatever they use. Sometimes they use different materials or different type of paint brushes, or I'll study it and say, hey, well, let me try that.
this. Yeah.
And so I've always tried to do something. I don't really. There is some themes around it, but I don't try to pinpoint what I'm going to do.
No, yeah. When I see your pieces, like I don't really get an exact. Someone who's like I've definitely when I was younger studied that more often, more so like urban art, and we were talking about like the Basquiat and your Banksys and things like that. And like I see your pieces are just there's no specific style, which I like for me personally. And I'm just wondering if like when you actually started on a canvas, were you younger, or was it like what time in your life did you really start to put emphasis in painting in your spare time?
I think in my early 30s, I started to really get into painting. I kind of messed around with it. I was doing more like illustrations and that type of thing before. And yeah, I still like that. I mean, I might go back to that illustrative form kind of fashion illustration kind of thing going on. I think maybe that when I work on my book or something like that, design book of some sort, that I'll get into the flow of that consistency of the design artworks.
And what do you think like sparked, we've talked about music, we talked about drumming and the importance it has on your life. But there's so many different aspects to creatives and their reasoning behind certain things. And sometimes it's just to relax. And I'm just wondering, so going into your paintings, were you also, before that when you were younger, were you drawing too, like sketching? And then it's kind of evolved, like you've always been creative? Because I'm just wondering, because, younger, you had the influence from elders and people around you with drumming and music. Painting was just something that you wanted to do, like it was just something you were into. And then on top of the fashion, which is another creative aspect, I'm sure you were like drawing sketches for stuff as well.
Oh yeah,
so it's kind of evolved. So you've kind of done different facets of creative things throughout the years, right?
Oh yeah, so that's the best part of it, that you're not stuck in one area or one technique. I'm always trying to explore how I could take that idea and put it into a different context so that it can work. Like right now, like all these are just kind of dimensional paintings. What I really want to get going, and we're building towards that, is the interactive, by using technology with that, so that there is a movement. So now you can walk up to it and boom, you'll kick off something like a sound. Or
And are you thinking of this for the exhibit or for TSe K WA, for the interactive Because I know Sequoia, that's, and we'll delve into it a little bit more, but that's kind of the idea, is to have an interactive, I guess, museum.
Yeah, that's. I think there's a combination of both. I think there's different elements that can go in. Each piece is you gotta figure out, okay, what do we need for that to bring out? Sometimes it could be just a simple thing as a light that turns on when you walk into it, or it activates a voice, and then all of a sudden you hear the music, right? So right now we're working on soundscapes, and that's going to be really exciting, because now we have multiple purposes that we can use those soundscapes for. Everything from just listening to podcasts, or put it embedded it into an exhibit, so that you can hear what's going on within that exhibit piece.
So the thought there, and even with the soundscapes, is there a specific, I guess, project that those are aimed towards, or is it just something that you guys are in the midst of creating right now with an idea of where it might go, but it really is multi-purpose? Like, is it for Sequoia, or what are the soundscapes for, I guess?
Well, the soundscape is part of the BC Hydro project for the exhibits. So we proposed to them that we wanted to create cultural soundscapes to incorporate into the exhibits. So that is specific for that. We've got a lot of them. So
Okay.
not everything is going to work. So we did a lot of extra work on that. So we just got to find the right mix for each of the exhibits. And then for Sequoia too, the same thing. I mean, it may be something that we have to recreate if it doesn't fit. Because you got to find, I think the composition of, say, any artwork or any piece of creative is that you got to find the right compositions and textures, the sound. It's all got to kind of flow together,
Or else it doesn't fit. It feels out of like, it feels jarring almost.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So the idea there is to get people to come in either through colors, through sound, or through something that kind of attracts the people to kind of, oh, what's this? Now you can be able to add other textures to it.
That's cool. So with the soundscapes, you're creating that piece of it. So is the exhibits, is this going to be like a traveling exhibit that goes to different galleries or different communities, or is this something that you guys want within Doig? Like, what's the goal for the exhibit once you guys kind of get into the final stages of the process on the project?
Well, I think the main ones that we want to do for BC Hydro Cultural Center is we want a permanent one.
Oh, okay.
But we do have one that's a mobile one that's going around to different communities. So we may do a combination of both, to move them, to change it around, because you always got to keep changing things around to make it fresh. So I think it's important to do that. So we'll take pieces of it and then create another one. So it's going to be a constant evolution of telling stories. And then again, that's what it's all about. How do we tell a story? For example, how do we use the latest, greatest technology in artificial intelligence? So that's why, one of the plans that we're working on is to go and visit the Maori people. Because the Maoris already have established and created the programming using artificial intelligence for languages. And we want to be able to adopt that.
Yeah.
So we want to be able to use it, because now we have over 10,000 words for Beaver language. And we want to be able to use artificial intelligence so that you can immediately talk into it, have interaction with it, and say, how do you say this in Beaver? Or how do you spell it in Beaver? It should be able to spit it out to you pretty quick. And that, to me, is very, very exciting.
That's so interesting. That is really exciting. So you're right now in kind of the discussion process of going over to speak with the people and kind of how it's Maori, right?
The Maori, yeah.
Maori, yes, and that's New Zealand. So you're in the process of discussing going to New Zealand and kind of learning this, and what they're doing and how they're implementing it.
Well, there is an agreement with New Zealand and Canada, and part of the trade, cultural and business trade agreement includes Indigenous people, so that Maoris and us can get together and talk about what can we do to share our information, knowledges, and what can we do for business. So that is part of it. Certainly, we have already talked to people there. Actually, the Ice Age to Digital was help. One of the professors from Maori's is one that kind of helped frame the context around Ice Age to Digital for the proposal, the original proposal that we submitted to BC Hydro. At the university level, they're working really hard and fast, and they have a whole crew of people that work on this stuff. That is what we want to.
You want to see what they're
harness
doing.
those things. We want to see what they're doing. What can they do to give us the tools we need in order to speed up our process here, to make sure that we have that technology to do the Beaver language.
So all this is to kind of form this cultural center, and I don't think the nations or even BC Hydro has come out with too much information on the cultural center. But from what you can say, what is it going to look like? Where is it going to be? And kind of what's the goal of it?
Well, the goal of it is obviously we had to go overcome the ecological grief of the dam being built and flooding of it, and which is happening this fall, and the change of landscape. So what do we get out of it after that's done? So that was always the question I had. And with the tens of thousands of artifacts that they found all around there along the river, what are we going to do with that? We can't just bury it. We got to do something with it. So part of the moral obligation of the corporation is that they have to leave something for the people. So the context around that is build a cultural center to showcase all the artifacts and the stories of the people that's there. That's like 13 communities that are affected throughout the Peace Valley. So what do we want? That's tourism for us. In the future, it's going to come down. They want to see what's happening with the Site C, and they're going to probably tour down how that's all built. But after that, they're going to come to the cultural center and to get the history behind it.
And where's the cultural center going to be located? Has that been talked about yet?
Yeah, we're looking at 3 different locations, and now we're looking at the actual camp site and see how we can retrofit that if it's possible.
Yeah,
it's all about budgeting and that right now.
Yeah,
so
money,
how do we do it in a way that we can repurpose some of the materials down there or some of the buildings, just to be more cost effective, right, about building. So we start fresh. To build a brand new building, that's going to cost a lot of money nowadays, right? But if we can use an existing materials, I think that's more logical, right? So then there'll be more money available for the technology application, for exhibits, and a lot more engagement with the community to bring their stories forward.
That's going to be so interesting when that gets into, kind of goes up to the public and we learn more information about it. My biggest question is, there's so much going on with TSe K WA. Just got we mentioned it, a big donation recently. There's a lot of work that has been done and that's going into TSe K WA. What's going to separate the TSe K WA and the cultural center? Because I know there was a thought of the property on the TSe K WA site would be used as an kind of an interactive museum. I feel like Alyssa's told me a different term that they used as opposed to museum, but kind of like a small display of some of the history and artifacts that have been discovered at the TSe K WA site and the history that's been told from it. How is it just going to be meant for everything that's discovered in TSe K WA and its history, and it's going to be separate from the cultural center, or how is that going to work? Have you guys really talked about that yet?
Yeah, TSe K WA is really an interpretive center.
That's the word, interpretive center, yes.
So it's going to be more of an interpretive center about the cultural heritage material.
Oh, okay.
Processing that material and have a place where people can learn how to do these, take care of artifacts and how to create that and create stories around that. Because an indigenous heritage repository doesn't exist up in the north. I don't know if it even exists in Canada.
Not that I know of, no.
British Columbia.
Yeah.
So indigenous-owned, indigenous-led processes where we can be able to be a repository of all artifacts and process those. Then once they're ready for display, then they go to the cultural center, they go to the communities, they go to Nachi Commons, somewhere, right? Somewhere they can be able to be hosted and present it to the public. So for the TSe K WA, it's really about the history. It's the ground zero. I call
Yeah.
it ground zero of all artifacts because so far it's the oldest that we know, around 12,500 years. And there's artifacts now being tested, and we will know more as we unveil.
Yeah.
The
There's a lot to come out of it, and like you guys are doing so much work there. I know there was a lot of work in the past year of, because not only is it the interpretive center, but to supplement the, it being ground zero, quote unquote, that you're saying is like accessibility was a big thing, so that every walk of life, including elders, can get down and view the site as well and kind of learn that history too, right? So you guys have put in a lot of work. I know Alyssa has too. She's been definitely awesome at TSe K WA. So that's really cool. What else do you guys have coming up for TSe K WA that you're working on right now outside of the bigger goal of having the interpretive center and things like that?
Well, I think the main thing is the infrastructure that you mentioned, accessibility for the public to come there to learn about the history, and further research development that's going to occur based on evidence that we find. And then of course all the school kids, open it up for the school. That could be their first introduction to Indigenous people here as a full-fledged program.
Kind of adds it to the curriculum as well.
Add the whole thing to it.
Fair enough. So a lot going on with TSe K WA. You're working on the cultural center right now and the soundscapes for it. And now moving over, like I said, there's a lot of initiatives and projects going on with Doig. And before we wrap up here on the second part with you, Gary, the couple hours of you and I talking, I really wanted to delve into some of them. And one thing that keeps being brought up with not even people at Doig, it's more so people with relationships with Doig who have been through and I might say this wrong, and I've tried to say it multiple times, Kema Experience. I want to know, what's the purpose of it and how has it gone?
Kema is very popular, getting more popular.
Yeah.
Kema Kema means pure place in nature.
Okay.
And it's evolved into a cross-cultural training with the companies, all the oil and gas companies, government, industry, all kinds of different people that are interested in. And the goal is to get out in nature and go camping. And of course, we use our own traditional knowledge and share that, and modern stuff like cabins and different places people can stay, building shelters, going hunting, just all what it takes to go out and to camp. And one of the things that the feedback we got from these executives coming in is that it really builds relationships. Working together and chopping wood and piling and getting it ready, that's all building relationship. Yeah. Cooking together and sharing a meal and telling stories around a campfire. All that is about building relationship with one another to get to know one another, and of course learn the history of the local tribe and what we're doing today.
Yeah. Well, I was talking with Ken Wagner with Fraction Energy, and he was talking about it, and he pretty much said everything you just said, where it was nice to, have that camaraderie with, other people from the company who took part in the experience and others who joined in on it as well, including yourself, kind of leading it. And then he was also talking about learning about that history as well. From the good feedback that you've got about this, I call it a program, experience, initiative, from these big executives with these companies saying these good things, and then to have people wanting to do it more. What does that feel like for you? Does it feel like, oh, right, like we've hit something. This is an accomplishment. This is an achievement. This is working.
It makes me very happy that finally, after years and years of trying to get a program that executives can buy into, and then make sure that every person within the company experiences that. It becomes a common denominator for working with Indigenous peoples. So that's a big thing. What I've been hearing and feedback from the executives is that, I'd love to participate, but can I bring my kids? And then we said, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of requests about making it more kids friendly. So I think that's where we're going to go. The next phase of Kema is to open it up probably next year, open it up for executives and their kids.
Awesome.
Or people from the company and their kids. So then now you got, family coming
It's
in.
a whole family experience, and then it's an even bigger thing because then, for instance, as an example, Ken, I don't know if he has kids, I'm assuming he does, can then have this experience with his kids, and then this is something that not only brings them closer to Indigenous ways of life and in First Nations communities, but this is also something for them too.
Absolutely.
Right? Which is really cool. Oh, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
so that's really a big kind of next thing that's happening with Kema is that people want to have family experiences. And of course, we all know that a lot of families struggle with kids online all the time. Well, to get them offline, okay, let's go camping, go do something together. So that's another form of relationship building with families. So I think that's going to be a big, because Doig Days is always family orientated.
Yeah.
Our community in Doig is very family orientated. So we want to create a safe place for cultural and education experiences. So Kema Experience actually creates that.
And so a little bit of background on Kema. When did it start? And was this an idea that was created by yourself and others, or just yourself, or was it taken from maybe another program somewhere else? Kind of how did it start and when, if you remember?
Well, it all came from just our experiences in life. It started with the elders basically saying, if your mind is not in a good way, go find Kema. Go out in the bush. That's where the elders continually tell us, growing up and even hearing it now, and our experiences. Yeah, there's something that magically occurs when you go out in the bush and you get connected, right? Connected back to get rooted again. So the idea of connection, rootedness, back to camp, and that started that thing. So I submitted a proposal to Arts Council of Canada to actually explore that to my art. So how do I take my artwork and create these shelters and camp to do that? So that started me out to build that pathway. And then as we got going on it, and the more people were interested, the band becomes interested, and now it became part of the Doig River First Nations service offering for cross-cultural relationship.
So it was like, it started with what you were hearing from the elders, and then it's something that you had proposed. So your artwork isn't involved in the experience now with Doig, is it?
Oh yeah.
No, it is still? Okay.
Oh yeah, that's all part of the things
whole
that I
experience.
create, and if it works, and we'll use it. If not, then. Okay.
So you're saying you take a piece that you've created, and then maybe you explain the piece and how it is associated with Kema? Is that the goal, or how does it work? Sorry.
Oh yeah. So the context around bringing culture, art, and that experience is what formulated Kema.
Oh, okay.
Okay, camp shelters. Okay, what are we going to do? Well, okay, we created camouflage teepee. Never existed before, so now we can create that, or add a storyline, painted storyline to that. So we create these spaces with artwork. That was the intention, and some of it worked and some of it didn't, So
there's pieces of it implemented into it, mostly like kind of the structures that you're building or things that you're doing, the activities, right? Okay.
That's right, yeah.
And so, sorry, what year did it start? How long have you been doing it?
Oh, I don't know. It's
roughly
5 years.
5
now.
years, okay.
Yeah.
And it's like increasingly got more popular amongst, you're talking about executives. Is it outside of companies, or is it just for companies to bring them in and improve that relationship?
It started out with just the companies to bring in. It's similar to what we do with Doig Days for
Yeah.
the local community and the school, right? bring people in, and everybody participates and have a good time, and they want more of it. Same thing with, okay, what are we going to do with executives and people that come from Alberta or wherever, and what do they want to learn about the local tribe? Okay, well, participate in Kema. That's your first introduction to it. Then we can move forward to different levels. Our goal is to have different levels of Kema experiences.
Okay.
So the first one is Doig Day Kema. So they actually camp right in the community in Doig and participate with Doig Days. Level 1.
Nice.
Easy.
Yeah.
It's all set up. And it gets harder and challenging when we have to move camp. Mm-hmm. And then that means winter camp. It's like probably a 5.
Yeah. I don't know if I could do that.
Well, we have cabins.
Yeah, I'm still.
Yeah. So that's like 5, 6.
Yeah.
7 would be the ones that, survival.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
Eventually, we want to get to 7 level and learn about, the primitive tools and stuff like that could be used to go harvest an animal or something. That would be the ultimate.
Wow. Yeah.
Ultimate
So
goal.
it's all these levels that take in different experience to kind of, get to those traditions. So I would say that's like like you're saying, the extreme level of survival.
Number 4 is actually, we call it glamping.
I've heard of glamping.
Yeah, well, that's the level people like.
Yeah.
We want to have the experience, but we also want to have the modern conveniences.
Yeah. We want to be as comfortable as possible while being able to do this, as opposed to coming up with your own camp and then hunting animals, I'm sure is what people's notion is. So you're continuing to do that. When generally do you have Kema, like, do you have a part in the year where you are set to do the experiences? How does it work with scheduling them? Like, just is it mainly when businesses reach out, or how does that work? Does it start around Doig Days?
Excuse me. Yeah. Technically, we got 4 camps that we need to do for every season.
Okay.
So then people can book each the season.
Okay.
Excuse me. Yeah. So, and then if there's specific one the company wants or individuals want to participate in, we can then create one for them. So, but right now there's 4 major ones that people can participate with. The spring, summer kind of come together at Doig Days and in the camping, and then from there we move to the next level, which would be a fall winter camp.
So you say the summer winter camp is kind of like where you cap it off in the year?
Yeah.
And how many people do you generally have in during Kema, like when you're doing the camps?
Yeah, we can do anywhere from 15 is a pretty good number, but 25 we gotta say 25 is enough to start. But normally around 20 people would be good to participate.
And now moving over to another, big project that Doig River First Nation is doing right now, the Urban Reserve. Where are we at with that? I think I don't have the date off the top of my head, but the expected opening, is that next year or the year after? It's 2025, right?
It's coming up. Hopefully we have something by next year.
Oh, okay. Okay, so where are you guys at with it right now? And for those who don't know about it, what is the Urban Reserve? It's located in Fort St. John, but going off of that, kind of what are the thoughts with it?
Well, the Urban Reserve, Nachi Commons, we call it Nachi Commons.
Yeah.
Nachi means dreamer. Commons, of course, business is where the dreamers come together to do business. So it's going to be a neighborhood town within the town, hometown. From there, we're going to have gas station and retail outlets. There's talk about with companies such as Starbucks. We're talking with them, and they want to participate with us in that.
Nice, a new Starbucks, and that's not sarcasm. I'm very stoked on that. The one in Fort St. John gets busy.
Yeah, everybody likes coffee.
Yeah, seriously. I literally came with a coffee, and you had one as well. So with the Urban Reserve, like you said, there's a lot going into it, but the whole thought of it is to bring is also for First Nation like Doig members in Fort St. John, right? So this is a place that they can go to connect with the First Nation, the community, without, always having to travel, right? Is that the kind of thought about it? Thoughts with it?
I think the big thing there is it's a long-term economic strategy for us. It's a business deal for us, and we have to generate our own money. And what better way to do it, having an urban town that can have all the services, better services than what's available right now.
And then, so this came after, obviously, an MOU, agreements, and discussions with the city of Fort St. John. And so once this is built and you have these services there, so basically it's like you guys own this complex. And so you guys are then getting revenue from people that are in these spaces. So does it get split up with Doig and the city, or is all the revenue going to you guys?
All the revenue goes to us.
Okay.
We do have a service agreement with the city, which we have to pay for water.
Because obviously we're in the city, so
Right.
yeah, okay.
So they will be taken care of through that service agreement that we did. And then the rest goes to, the nation, and we distribute as required for education, additional educational dollars or training, supporting businesses.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. Like you said, you guys are looking at different opportunities to grow the First Nation, and this is a huge one. So with it, is there anything else like people need to know about the urban reserve, like kind of some requirements, I guess, or some things you guys are looking at specifically there? Like, are you going to have Indigenous-owned businesses there? Are you going to have I believe you guys are going to have a space specifically for Doig, like you're going to have like kind of like a Fort St. John office there. Is that correct?
Yeah, there'll be a business office there, and where people can rent rooms or
like boardrooms and things like that.
Like that. It'll be available. There's other companies that are looking to create an office space there. So I think we're going to have a really good mix for everybody to come in, have a good time there, and do business with one another.
It's mutual growth for the city and for Doig, right? Because you guys, again, you're going into the community, you're having this space that's yours, and then on top of that, it's growing the city, right? You're using vacant land right now, and you're providing more services to community members, which I think is really awesome, especially that gas station. I know a lot of people were talking about that too, that we have another one right across from the school, which is like perfect. So is there anything else with the urban reserve, or that's pretty much, you guys are still in the planning phases of talking with businesses to come in and things like that?
Yeah, right now we're just organizing our infrastructure to pull the trigger. Right now there's planning going on to do architectural drawings and that type of thing. You got to build the water, the infrastructures, the water systems and all that. That's all being planned out right now. Hopefully, we're hoping that we can hit the ground soon, but we haven't got the drawings and all those things done. We're still trying to set up our trust systems and where and how we're going to be able to pull that off. So there's a lot of planning in works right now.
Yeah,
and it's coming along pretty good.
That's
and
awesome.
We're really hoping that we can have something to show people, the public, where we at, and our partners, and say, hey, this is where we at, and we're ready to go. Looking at asking community what they would like to see. So we're doing a lot of outreach and asking different people, and even in the whole city, right? Like, what are the services they think that would be
that's needed and that would go there, yeah.
I know one of the things a lot of people are talking about is some kind of health center, right? The updated health center, so that people don't spend 8 hours waiting to see a doctor.
Yeah.
So something like that, we're definitely looking at that. And of course, what other type of business? New restaurants, higher end restaurants.
Yeah.
Looking at different chains or different groups that may want to come and participate with us.
Is there anything else in your mind that you want to talk about? We pretty much touched on everything that I wanted to.
Yeah, I think we talk about reconciliation. We talk about UNDRIP, the United Nations Declaration, We talked a lot of that. So all the things that we're doing is really implementing all those things in real time. And say, this is what's going on. This is how Indigenous people can create independence using their history, their culture, and build into a tourism network. And what's the future for us? Of course, there's still going to be oil and gas development and other things going on with natural resources. But what is there for us in terms of business? So I think tourism is a big thing, Indigenous tourism. So once we build out all our infrastructure, we can have tours that goes around. And we're already doing it with different organizations right now that want to go and tour TSe K WA, they want to see Doig, they want to go see what are we working on, right? So
it's kind of like a tour we have in the area.
Yeah.
Essentially, that's what you're creating. Like you said, a network, right?
it's going to be a network of partnerships, infrastructures, and businesses so that we can create a cellular economy. So I think that's the bigger picture of what we're talking about. We need to make sure that we can generate our own resources so that we can, take care of our community, take care of the people in the region here.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Gary. I loved talking with you for, I think in total we've talked for like 3 hours. So I appreciate it. It's always awesome to come by and see your artwork and just even have a chat with you. So thank you so much for sitting down on the podcast again.
Well, I appreciate your interest. Ujong.
I hope you guys enjoyed that episode with Gary Oker. It was the last of my 2-part episode series thing. Had a great conversation with Gary. It was, again, like 3 or 4 hours long, so we decided to split it into 2 separate podcasts. He's an interesting cat. He's well known in the community in the northeast region of BC, and he's done a lot. He's led an interesting life, and it was always fun to talk with him, but specifically this time it was really nice to get to know Gary a little bit more, and I'm sure you guys have that thought as well. Make sure you guys are subscribing to Before the Peace using your favorite podcast app or energeticcity.ca /podcast if you haven't already. Also, again, if you have a guest or program idea, make sure you email me at beforethepeace@moosefm.ca or beforethepeace@energeticcity.ca or Trey@energeticcity.ca. There's a lot of ways to get a hold of us. You can also reach out on Instagram at Before the Peace or BeforeThePeace _ on Twitter. See you guys next month. Woo! Yay! Before the Peace.